above sea level, 1.6K above sea level. So it's a little cooler up here throughout the year. The winter time we get snow up here. About 1 meter or 3 feet of snow would be the normal snowfall up here in the winter time. A little bit more moisture in the summertime even. So you see a lot more vegetation than we've seen so far. The vegetation out here actually brings out more wildlife, so some of the stuff we can see: bighorn sheep, mountain goats, mountain lion, deer, antelope, elk, wild horses, donkey, cattle, buffalo, wild pigs, coyotes, foxes, a foxelite, bow wow wow wow. Never know what we find out here. This time of year we see less and less wildlife though, just because it's hot. So like us, they want shade and they want to find where the water is so they don't have to move too far. Come on, keep me where I'm riding. Come on, keep me where I'm riding. In front of us, you know, I never really liked to talk about them, but people kept asking me about those things. So I figured I'd tell you guys now so nobody asks. Think of it like gray poop pond, only a little different. They're the gray poop ponds, okay? So, if you're a Breaking Bad fan, you probably know Heisenberg's stuff. He actually is living right there, Heisenberg is, so I can come out here and get you guys a deal when nobody's looking. We are in a little valley here where they have pinyon pine trees, mesquite trees, juniper bushes. The pinyon pine trees, the mesquite trees, and the juniper bushes make up most of this valley, and because of that, the animals like to come through here. Again, when there's more water around, but nonetheless, still keep an eye out. Pinyon pine trees grow the pine cone we get the pine nut out of. The juniper bush grows the berry that we ferment and turn to gin, and the mesquite tree is a hardwood tree good for your barbecue or your smoker. The moral of the story is if you ever get lost out here on top of the canyon, you can have pine nuts, you can make gin, and you can have a barbecue. So there's some Joshua trees just over the hill here. Joshua trees over there in the open. They got the really big green bulbs around them, and then there's more Joshua trees right mixed down with all the pine trees down there. Joshua trees grow only 3 places in the world: California, Arizona, and Nevada. And the Joshua tree takes 80 years to become 1 meter or 3 feet tall. They know that it used to grow near water because it grows a lily flower every other spring. And lilies take a lot of water to grow, so they know it had to have grown near the water. The name Joshua tree was given to the tree by the Mormons who were coming through the area back in the 1800s, spreading their spin-off of Christianity to the masses. They were moving out of Utah where their religion was found, and they wanted to get it to as many people as possible. So they set out of Utah, coming down through California, Arizona, and Nevada, having never seen those trees before. They started noticing them on the mountaintops. So they thought it was people standing there with their arms raised to the heavens above. So they wanted to join the congregation of people, but then they'd get up there to see it was those trees. It kept fooling them in the beginning, but then they realized it helped them get to a spot where they could see the valleys down below that they needed to navigate to. So they started relying on those trees to get them from point A to point B, and because it was able to help them, they decided that it must have been put there by God to resemble that of Joshua and his followers praising on the mountaintop, so that's why they called it the Joshua tree. A little down below Meadview. It's the town I told you about on the way in that I told you was a nudist colony. I was joking about it. Notice the streets are still dirt roads. They haven't even paved the roads. The town has been here since the 1940s. The people, when they were looking at buying this land, were told that it was going to have a view of Lake Mead. Now, in the 1940s, the way people bought land was with a map. They showed where the land was in proximity to things. They weren't driving around and going to check things out back then. So this was shown that it was close to the lake, which you can see it is, but it wasn't close enough to have a view. So the people came out here thinking that's what they were going to get, a view of the lake, and when they got here, they were really upset, as you can imagine. They were duped into buying the land. About 1,200 people moved here before they could get the word out that it was a hoax. Here they are 80 years later, still in the middle of nowhere. An hour-and-a-half drive that way to Kingman, Arizona, which is the next closest place nearby. That's where most of the people who have to work go to work, and where grades 6 through 12 take a bus to and from school every day. So good old Meadview. Now you can see the Colorado River over there coming into the lake. That is the Colorado River basin of the lake. It is the smallest of the three basins, but it does provide the most amount of water. About 80% of the water coming into Lake Mead comes from the Colorado River, which starts in Colorado and ends in Mexico. The journey of the Colorado River is 1,450 miles or 2,300 kilometers across the U.S. and Mexico. The journey of the river takes it from Colorado, Utah, Arizona, Nevada, and California, 5 states, crosses the border of Mexico and goes out to the Sea of Cortez, where it becomes salt water. From a snowflake on the mountain to melting to becoming a saltwater droplet, the trip of the Colorado River is about 1 year in total journey. Impressive river over there. Now the big wishbone shape in the middle of the lake is actually where the Virgin River comes in from Utah. And the Virgin River is what used to meet the Colorado River down there in the middle. Continuing as the Colorado River behind the mountains where it disappears, then the Colorado River would take a big left-hand turn, follow the mountains all the way out that way. The peak out there about 12:30, 1 o'clock is actually, if we flew over it, we'd be flying back over the dam again after that. So it kind of gives you an idea where we are again. Now the Virgin River comes out of Utah, and it comes into the largest basin of the lake, providing about 6 to 8% of the water annually. It only has a 300-mile or 500-kilometer journey, and it has the largest basin but provides the least amount of water. On our left, the rectangles of land are for sale still today. That is where Meadview is supposed to expand to before the word got out that it was a hoax. As you can see, nobody's really itching to buy the land. You can buy yourself 40 acres out there for about $8,000. No plans for water or electricity, so you're going to have to provide your own. The easiest way, dig a well. You'll have unlimited water. It costs you about 30 to 40 grand to dig a well. And then for power, the easiest way is buy a wind turbine or some solar panels. Since we have like 355 days of sun a year, you'll have unlimited power. Build a house. By the time you buy the land, buy the solar panels or wind turbine, by the time you buy the well, all that stuff, build your house, you're looking at about $400,000 to $500,000 investment. You live out here with no neighbors, you can live naked and free. Be the mayor of Nakedville.
Well, it's something I never told you.
Wear your sunscreen, it's always sunny out here.
While you were sitting in the back seat smoking a cigarette you thought was going to be your last, I was falling deeply in love with you. And I never told you till just now.
So as we cruise across the desert here, remember those trails we saw when we came through the mountains where I started talking about dinosaurs? That's over there about 1 to 2 o'clock, that little dip in the mountain. Now, as we can see, the water disappears behind the mountain over there. So you imagine when this was just the Colorado River in the 1800s, pioneers and cowboys coming through here not having any clue where they were going to be ending up. They'd come through here and they'd always want to follow the water. Again, it's very important for us to have water, especially in the desert. So they'd follow the water, and when it disappeared, they're like, oh no, what do we do now? Jagged, steep mountains everywhere. But they noticed that gentle slope, so they could go up there and see through that little dip to the other side where the river was, and it actually gave them a view all the way into the Las Vegas Valley way back then. So, still does today. So you can imagine how excited they were in the 1800s when they climbed that ridge there, saw the water on the other side, saw all the way into Vegas, and they all looked at each other and said, oh dang, all this time and there have been hotels right there. No, but what they did see was the beautiful Vegas Valley, which, as we kind of mentioned on the way out, a lot of Spanish influence here in the southwest part of the U.S. Spanish-speaking people were the first ones here, the Spaniards in the 1700s, and they named things the way they did so that on a map, people could look at it and know exactly what was there. The name Las Vegas actually translates to the meadows or the terrace. So that tells you, oh, there's a place with water. So in the middle of the desert, that could maybe be an important clue. And you wouldn't even have to tell anybody how to get there. They just look on a map and go, we need to go there. So all the way back in the 1700s, that's how Vegas even got started. And then the 1800s started when the cowboys and pioneers started settling in there. Well, this area through here, we know was part of the Pioneer Trail, as the pioneers and cowboys were moving through here back a long time ago. Well, at the same time, the Mormons were wanting to grow their religion, so they set out of Utah, as we started to discuss a little while ago, and they'd set along the Pioneer Trail because they knew there was a lot of people traffic. And what they would do is every 30 to 50 miles, or about every 50 to 100 kilometers, they'd build little communities. In those little communities, they'd have about 100 or so people, and they'd offer free food, free water, and a free place to sleep for the pioneers passing through. And they teach about their religion and saying, hey, the next family's here, go see them, they'll do the same thing for you. So people, the pioneers and cowboys, started passing each other on the trail, talking about these people that were so nice. Then they realized, holy cow, they're helping everybody. So they start to realize they want to be part of that, so they start converting to Mormonism. So the Mormon faith grows very quickly in the Southwest. A lot of Mormon influence and stuff here in the Southwest. Well, one of those little communities that we're talking about was that way from here, about 60 miles or 100 kilometers, and it was called St. Thomas. And St. Thomas was right up against the Virgin River. And as the water for the lake started to rise, the government was doing their environmental impact study, and they actually saw that the Virgin River had those little community, and they went there by land and told them to evacuate. So in 1942, St. Thomas started to get flooded, and then by 1945, it was about halfway submerged. And it stayed that way until about 2012 when the lake levels got low like they are now. St. Thomas reemerged from the shallows, and it still is today. You can actually drive out to St. Thomas from Las Vegas in about an hour and a half time. And there's foundations of buildings that were once there and partially standing buildings that are still there. It's a really neat place. You can also look it up on the internet. You can type in underwater town of Lake Mead and see the pictures. Now, in the middle of the lake over there, the big opening is also something really neat, part of history. An airplane, a B-29 Super Fortress, crashed in the lake. The crew was working with the Nevada test site, and they were testing a system called the Sun System. Well, as you can imagine, there's only two things the Sun System would do. They'd either be looking at the sun, which makes no sense, or they'd be making night like day. That makes a lot more sense. So way back in the 40s, they had technology to try to turn night into day. Well, the crew was flying over the lake. With the night technology they had no depth perception. They didn't know they were so close to the water. They were fixated on what they were doing. The plane was in a very slight descent, and they didn't know it. The plane made contact with the lake surface and freaked the crew out. They actually pitched the plane up. The plane stalled. They then leveled it. They landed. They did a good enough landing that they survived. All 5 crew members of the B-29 survived. The plane sunk. They were rescued. When they were rescued, they asked them why they crashed their plane, and their answer was simple. They said as they were over the water, they didn't realize they were that close. So, luckily the 5 crew members survived, because that's how I know about the story. One of the 5 crew members was my grandfather, and he told me the story. Okay, I made that part up. But the rest is true. The plane is at the bottom of the lake still today. It's actually sitting in about 20 meters of water today, or about 60 feet of water. You can scuba dive into it these days. When it originally crashed, it was in about 65 meters or 200 feet of water. So you can look that up on the internet too, underwater plane of Lake Mead. So underwater town of Lake Mead, underwater plane of Lake Mead, you'll see the pictures of the 2 things we just talked about. Really cool parts of history. Now, you can imagine that's just the Colorado River over there on the right, and this valley is what it is. Over that ridge there to our left before the mountain range behind it is downhill to the Colorado River again. So from Colorado River to Colorado River was about 30 miles or 50 kilometers. And back in the 1800s, this was the easiest path of resistance to take. So the pioneers and cowboys would come right through here by foot or horseback, taking about 6 to 8 hours to get from water point to water point, or about 2 to 3 days by foot. The road that we're crossing is Temple Bar Road. It brings you out to that marina that I told you about, but it also covers the Pioneer Trail that was once here. Now they left remnants of the Pioneer Trail on the left and the right. You can see below and above the road on the left and above the road on the right the remnants of the Pioneer Trail. Some places didn't make sense to pave over it because the water flood area and whatever else, but for the rest of the reason, the work was already done. They just had to widen it a little bit, add the asphalt. So really neat part of history that we just crossed there. Now that was about 150 years ago, and we can probably all agree that that doesn't sound like that long ago, right? They were walking through here on horses in the desert with no air conditioning for 8 to 10 hours, wondering when the next water stop was. That's amazing. Here we are in a helicopter with air conditioning. We're like, oh man, so hot, so miserable. So it kind of puts things into perspective. We do a whole lot of distance in just about an hour. They could only dream of that. Now, at the time they were doing that, the U.S. is only about 70 years old, and Nevada and Arizona weren't even part of the U.S. yet. So as they were coming through here, they really had no idea where they were going. So while we're talking about time, time's one of those things that's valuable to us as humans. We really don't have a grasp on it, though, but better than anything else, because if we were to talk about something 10 years from now, you'd be like, yeah, whatever. That's 10 years. Who cares? And it seems like a really long time, but once 10 years gets here, you're like, holy cow, that was so quick, I can't even believe that. Like celebrating 17 years of marriage, you guys look back and go, I can't even believe that was 17 years ago, right? Then they're looking at each other like, no, we believe it. No, but as we know, time goes really fast, and we start to realize that as we get older. And so what that makes me do is get a little sentimental with you guys here. Because we're all given a time on the planet. We don't know how long that is. We have an expiration date, if you will. And none of it's printed on us, so we live our life the best we can while we're here. We make a bucket list. We do all the things on it. Like today, we knock some things off. Go on a helicopter, check. Go to the Grand Canyon, check. Meet a crazy pilot. Okay, we added that one, check. The point of the matter is that it's the same for all of us in the end. It's just what happens after depends on what you believe. And no moment is guaranteed except the moment we're in. So what I like to remind you guys is to enjoy each moment as if it were your expiration date, because you never know when it's going to come. Be responsible, but knock things off your bucket list every day, even if that means you have to put something on it just to take it off. Because as we've been flying today around 80 million-year-old volcanoes, it's no exception we're flying by one again. If it wakes up, we're at the bottom of the rubble. I don't think it's going to in my lifetime, but if it did, cool story, bro. But the point is that's how quick it can be for us. So remember that going forward, to control the things that you only have control over. If you have no control over it, don't let it weigh you down, because you can't change it. The only thing you can change is the way you feel and the way your attitude is. Remember to enjoy the life around you and take it all in. Right now you're going, is he going to clear the mountain? Remember what I just told you. Control what you can control. I'm clearing the mountain. Take in the view. Enjoy the beauty. It surrounds us every day and we forget about it. Start practicing all those things now and bring them forward.
I'm on top of the world, I'm on top of the world, been on it for a while now, paying my dues to the dirt. I've been waiting to hold it for a while, take me with me if I can, but you're a different child. I'm on top of the world. I've tried to cut these corners, tried to take the easy way. I kept on falling short.
So as we continue onward, you guys look out there at the snow-capped mountain that's almost out of snow. That's where we go snowboarding and snow skiing in the wintertime, believe it or not. It's only about an hour drive from Vegas to get up there. And that mountain is what gave Vegas its name, the Las Vegas Valley, as the water came down and made it that fertile meadow or terrace. And then all the people started gathering in and taking away, and so now it's not as green in the middle of the valley as it once was. As a matter of fact, they've gone and put a cement channel through the entire middle of the valley so that they can make sure the water gets to the lake properly. Not only the water from the mountain, but from all the homes, from the sprinklers and hoses and random fire hydrants that get knocked over. Get all that water out there to the lake so we can keep the lakes filling up. The mountain used to provide about 6 to 8% of the water annually, just like the Virgin River Basin did. But now with all the people in Vegas, it provides about 12 to 15%. On our right is the Boulder Basin. It's the last of the three basins of the lake. And dead smack in front of us is the Colorado River. This side of it is Arizona, the other side is Nevada. And as you look left, you can see the Colorado River extend down to the south. That's that way. If we turn left right now in the helicopter, we can fly to the border of California and Arizona and Mexico in about 2 hours from here. It's not even that far. And you can see how all the land kind of flattens way out there and how important that was probably for the pioneers and cowboys coming through here as they needed to get back to that water source, looking for greener pastures that they eventually found. Reminds us again how easy we actually have it, yet we make it so hard on ourselves sometimes. On our right is the Memorial Bridge. The Memorial Bridge is in front of the dam, as we know. We won't see the dam from our angle, unfortunately. But the dam was built in the Great Depression, one of the toughest times the U.S. has ever had to face. From 1931 to 1936, the dam was built. It was a government-sponsored project expected to take 10 years and cost $100,000. It actually finished in 5 years and $50,000, and it's the first and only government project in U.S. history ever finished ahead of schedule and under budget. Maybe there were less politics, but I think it had more to do with the Depression. People knew if they lost their jobs, they wouldn't have another one, no way to put food on the table for their families. Not to mention what we know as Vegas in the 30s was not what it is. There may have been 2,000 people living in all of Las Vegas at the time, spread out over the entire valley. 2,000 people is the size of Boulder City. So imagine that little small community spread over that huge valley that we see. And Boulder City was really small, probably about the size of this little gun range, a little bigger, but it was the houses for the workers. So you can imagine nothing out here in the middle of the desert, hardly any houses, hardly anything going on. There was a dirt road from Boulder City to Fremont Street where the Golden Nugget was, which was the only hotel and casino around at the time. And that dirt road stretched across from Boulder City to Fremont Street for 40 miles or 60 kilometers. So Yeah, literally nothing out here. So the people worked really hard, they got the job done, and they went on. They were actually offered to buy the houses when the project was done for $1. Over 90% of the workers said no thanks. That kind of tells you how much of nothing was out here, because most of those people didn't have a thing to their names. So they got the job done, they got out of here, they left, the houses stayed, the government kept possession of them, and life went on. 80 years later, you look back and go, dang, we probably should have bought those houses. $1 back then is equal to about $2,000 today, so the moral of the story, if anybody offers you a house out there at Meadview for $2,000, you buy it, because you never know when Vegas ends up next to you. Now, the dam was to stimulate the economy, which it did really well, and bring electricity to Los Angeles, which had well over 1 million people already. They did that. And fast forward to today, over 80% of the power leaving the dam still going to LA. Only about 8% goes to our valley right there, even though we're right next door. Vegas was not here. LA was already grandfathered in. They can't steal the power from LA. So we have lots of sun, like 355 days of it, so we put solar panels everywhere we know we can never put a house. So our time together is coming to an end. But before it does, we're going to talk about how the population came to be in Vegas. In the 1960s, we had about 10,000 people. By the 1980s, we had about 100,000 people. By 1995, we had about 200,000 people. From 1995 to 2007, we grew from 250,000 people to 1.5 million. Now we're over 2 million people with 40 million visitors like you coming out, hanging out every single year. And we couldn't do without you guys. There's plenty of other companies you could have chosen, and you chose us, so for that, we're very grateful here at Serenity Helicopters. I'm Jim. I was your pilot, tour guide, and host. Your van driver today was Adam, helping you out inside the office. Jen, Tristan, and Elise. Couldn't do without the crew. Put your pictures on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, tag Serenity Helicopters, be our friends, and then we can see your pictures too. If you do the Google or the Yelp thing, we like to know how we've done. Again, I gave you all the names. I'm Jim. Let me know. It's been an honor and a pleasure being your host and guide. I couldn't do without you. I wish you guys many years of happiness. To my oldly weds, happy anniversary and continued happiness. To my newlyweds, many years of wedding bliss ahead of you. Thank you guys all so very much for hanging out. Safe travels home back to Guatemala, back to Mexico, back to New York, and of course back to Vegas. We'll see if we can get this thing on the ground with all this wind. You can wave goodbye, you can blow kisses. The movie will be available at the end. If you guys are interested, they'll tell you about it. In the meantime, hang out. We'll sit here for a couple minutes, and we'll get this thing wound down and shut down and get us inside. Thank you so much. It's been an honor and a pleasure.